Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. Starting off with something that's got fans of horror game very excited once again. Glen Schofield, the man who created Dead Space, is still thinking about bringing Dead Space 4 back to life. And you probably know Schofield as the man behind the original Dead Space back in 2008. It was a dark, claustrophobic and genuinely terrifying game that defined sci-fi horror for a whole generation, but after Dead Space 3 the series went silent. EA, the publisher, seemed to have moved on. Now though, things might be changing. Schofield has recently revealed that since EA's recent acquisition by private investors, there could finally be a window of opportunity. He said, "I've got a few ideas I'm ready to go with, and one of them is Dead Space 4, and I'm already making calls." That's a bold statement, especially considering his previous attempt to revive the series didn't actually go anywhere. In fact, he once pitched to EA directly, offering to reunite the original leadership team and even use existing assets from EA Motive's Dead Space remake to save the company of up to $40 million. EA said no. So some people might be thinking, well, what's with the renewed hope from Glen Schofield? Well, it may be that new ownership brings new priorities and new opportunities, or maybe Schofield just isn't ready to let this universe die. It's interesting, Dead Space was brought back to life briefly in 2023 with EA Motive's remake of the first game, which fans and critics absolutely loved. But despite glowing reviews and critical feedback and success, the sales actually didn't hit EA's target. So the studio that handled the remake was moved on eventually to work on Battlefield, leaving Dead Space once again in limbo. Could Schofield be the one to truly resurrect Dead Space and create Dead Space 4? Fans have waited for over a decade, and maybe, just maybe, the stars are starting to align for a return to the Dead Space series. Now moving on to another iconic horror franchise, and that is Resident Evil. Capcom has been on a roll lately with its remakes from Resident Evil 2 to Resident Evil 4, bringing classic nightmares back to life with modern graphics and storytelling. Now it looks like the next game in line for the remake treatment is Resident Evil 0, the GameCube prequel that explored Rebecca Chambers' early encounters with the undead. Now, reports suggest that Resident Evil 0 Remake has actually been in development for a number of years now under the codename Chamber, which is a clever nod to its protagonist, Rebecca Chambers. Voice and motion capture are said to have started way back in 2024, and one name we know that is attached to the project is John McClaren, best known as the voice of Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. All signs point to him playing Billy Cohen, Rebecca's unlikely partner in the game. And what's interesting here is how Capcom seems to be expanding on the original story. In the first Resident Evil 0 game, some characters were barely more than just footnotes. For example, the train conductor, who was only mentioned in the original game, will now reportedly play a bigger role in the remake. In one new scene, he asks Rebecca for help, only to betray her and trap her with zombies as he flees. Later, she finds him again interacting with a mysterious new character tied to the larger Umbrella storyline. And this shows Capcom isn't just remaking the old games, they're rewriting and expanding some elements of the story, giving fans more layers to familiar stories. But don't expect to see this game anytime soon. According to insider reports, Code Veronica, another long requested remake, is expected first, possibly around 2027, while Resident Evil 0 could arrive closer to 2028. So the wait might be long, but if the quality matches Resident Evil 4 Remake, it will be worth it. Now let's move on to a different game and talk about performance. Sony recently released a new power saving feature for the PlayStation 5, and one of the first games to be updated for it is Demon's Souls, the incredible remake that launched with the console back in 2020. The idea is simple: cut down energy usage while you play. When you turn on this feature, the game automatically drops from 60 frames per second down to 30, and the resolution gets lower too. And in return for the lower frame rate and resolution, the console draws far less power, dropping from around 230 watts to just under 100 watts. Now on paper that's a huge improvement, but does it really matter when you're deep in battle with a towering demon? For most players, probably not. The game still runs fine, but it just doesn't look or feel the same running in 30 FPS compared to 60 FPS with a higher resolution. So you might save, I don't know, $1 or $2 on electricity after 50 hours of gameplay, but for most fans, they agree that it's not worth the downgrade. Still, the update shows that Sony is serious about exploring lower usage within its hardware and maybe, just maybe, testing ideas for its rumored PlayStation handheld device. The idea that you probably will be able to play the vast majority, if not all, of your PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games, like Demon's Souls, on the go, running efficiently, without draining your battery life on the PlayStation handheld is absolutely brilliant. Could this small update be a quiet step towards that future? It certainly feels that way. Anyway, let's move on, because Hideo Kojima, one of gaming's most visionary minds, shared his thoughts on where the industry is headed in terms of AI. Now, in an interview with Rolling Stone Brazil, Kojima talks about sequels, remakes, and the growing role of artificial intelligence within game development. He pointed out that games are not the only medium to recycle ideas. Hollywood does it too. In fact, Hollywood does it all the time. It's easy to understand why. Remakes and sequels are a hell of a lot safer, right? They're a safe bet. They attract investment, and to be fair, people already know deep down, they already know the stories of the sequels. But Kojima warned that if the industry only keeps making sequels, it risks losing its creativity. And here's where his take gets fascinating. Kojima believes that in the future, AI will be the ones making remakes and sequels. And he doesn't see AI as a replacement for human creativity. Instead, he imagines it as a partner, a tool that handles the repetitive, time-consuming work so creators can focus on innovation and storytelling. It's a forward-thinking idea, but it also does raise questions. If AI starts producing games, where does the human touch go? Can machines truly understand emotion, tension, or the kind of storytelling that makes games like Metal Gear Solid or Death Stranding unforgettable? Interestingly, other industry figures don't fully agree with Hideo Kojima. Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick has said that AI won't really save money or reduce jobs, yet we're already seeing studios replace thousands of employees with AI-driven systems. In fact, around 20% of games released on Steam this year alone have openly stated that they use generative AI. That's an 800% increase from last year. So whether we like it or not, AI is not coming. AI is already here. The real question is, how will we use it? Will it push creativity forward or make games feel lifeless but more mechanical? Guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll catch you on the next video.